It was a crisp autumn morning in the small, picturesque neighborhood of Willow Creek Estates. The air carried that faint chill that hinted winter was not far away. Rows of neatly maintained houses lined the curved streets, each with manicured lawns, trimmed hedges, and mailboxes painted in matching shades of beige and green, all part of the strict rules enforced by the infamous Homeowners Association, or HOA. David Carter stood on his front porch, a steaming mug of black coffee in his hands. He was a 45-year-old U.S. Army veteran with short brown hair, a neatly kept beard, and a casual olive-green jacket that had seen better days. His eyes scanned the quiet street, taking in the peaceful scenery. After serving 20 years in the Army, including 2 tours overseas, David had moved here for one reason: peace. Willow Creek had seemed like the perfect place to start fresh. He had bought the modest 2-story home with the VA loan he'd earned, thinking it was his ticket to a calm civilian life. But peace, as David would soon learn, was not something the Willow Creek HOA gave easily. He took another sip of coffee and glanced down at his loyal companion, Max, a large, muscular German shepherd with intelligent brown eyes and a calm demeanor. Max wasn't just a pet. He was David's service dog, trained to assist with his PTSD and occasional mobility issues from an old shrapnel injury. Max had been with David through some of his toughest days. David bent down, scratched Max behind the ears, and said, "You and me, buddy, just a quiet life from here on out." If only that were true. It started small. A letter in the mailbox. The HOA logo at the top, bold and intimidating. He unfolded it, expecting maybe a generic community update. Instead, it read, "Notice of violation. You are hereby informed that your property is in violation of Willow Creek Estates Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, or CCNRs. Specifically, the presence of an unapproved animal, a German Shepherd, is against HOA guidelines, which prohibit large, aggressive breeds. Immediate removal is required within 14 days to avoid fines and legal action." David's eyebrows furrowed. Aggressive breed? Max had never hurt anyone. In fact, the dog was probably calmer than half the people on this street. He walked inside, letter in hand, and sat at the kitchen table. He knew HOA rules could be strict, but service dogs were protected under federal law. This had to be a misunderstanding. The next day, David decided to address the issue directly. He walked to the HOA office, a small converted house near the neighborhood entrance. Behind the desk sat a woman in her late 50s with tightly curled blonde hair, sharp glasses, and a power suit that screamed control freak. "Good morning. I'm David Carter from 145 Maple Drive. I got this violation notice about my dog. There's been a mistake. Max is a registered service animal." The woman adjusted her glasses and looked at him without a smile. "I'm Linda Myers. I'm the HOA president. We don't make mistakes, Mr. Carter. Large dogs aren't permitted." David's jaw tightened. "I served my country for 20 years. My service dog is not a violation. It's my legal right." Linda smirked. "We have community standards for a reason, and rules are rules. If you can't follow them, maybe this isn't the right place for you." Over the next 2 weeks, David received 3 more violation letters. Then came the fines: $250, $500, $750. Neighbors began to whisper. Some offered quiet support. Others avoided him, fearing they'd be the next target. Linda didn't stop at fines. She began patrolling David's property, taking pictures of Max from the sidewalk, documenting every moment she could. David kept his cool, but inside, the old soldier in him was preparing for battle. He knew Linda thought she could bully him out. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The final straw came when David received an eviction notice, not legally binding, but intimidating nonetheless. It stated that if Max wasn't removed in 7 days, the HOA would take further action to reclaim the property. David sat in his living room, the notice on the table, Max resting his head on his knee. He thought about the sacrifices he'd made, the friends he'd lost, and the country he'd served. No one, not an enemy overseas, and certainly not a petty HOA president, was going to take away his service dog. David started researching. He dug through federal and state laws, printed documents from the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, and contacted a veterans legal aid organization. He learned something Linda clearly didn't care to know. It was illegal for an HOA to discriminate against service animals regardless of breed. Within a week, David had assembled a legal case file thicker than a phone book. He also contacted local news stations, veteran advocacy groups, and even a few influential friends he'd made during his service. The next HOA meeting was packed. David walked in with Max by his side, a calm but determined expression on his face. Local reporters were there, cameras rolling. When Linda saw them, her confident smirk faded. David stepped up to the microphone. "For the record, my name is David Carter. I am a veteran of the United States Army. This is Max, my service dog. He is not just allowed under the law, he is protected by it. And this HOA has been breaking that law for weeks." Gasps filled the room. David held up printed copies of the ADA regulations. "Every violation notice you sent me is not only invalid, it's evidence of harassment and discrimination." The cameras caught every word. Within 48 hours, the story aired on local TV and spread online. The headlines were brutal. HOA harasses disabled veteran over service dog. Emails flooded the HOA office. Veterans from across the country called in to express outrage. Sponsors began to pull funding from community events. Linda tried to backtrack, issuing a half-hearted apology in the HOA newsletter, but the damage was done. David's legal team filed a formal complaint with the state attorney general's office. Facing massive legal fees and public humiliation, the HOA board voted to remove Linda as president. David received a written apology and confirmation that Max was fully permitted to remain with no fines or restrictions. Months later, David sat on his porch again, coffee in hand, Max at his feet. The neighborhood was quiet. No more letters, no more harassment. A neighbor passing by waved and said, "Glad you stood up to them, David. You made this place better for all of us." David smiled, scratching Max's ears, and said, "Just doing what I was trained to do, protect my own." Max wagged his tail, and for the first time in months, David truly felt at peace.